Hello and welcome to another episode of A Coffee with Chris. As always, brought to you in association by 𝗖𝗄𝗄𝗲, our charity partner who help local people affected by cancer, and proudly sponsored by Hill Coaching Company, here to help you become a better version of yourself today. Now let's welcome today's guest. He goes by the name of Ryan O'Keefe, founder of Jago. They develop authentic leaders, uplift your personal brand, earn you respect, and drive your growth. Ryan, welcome to A Coffee with Chris. Let's kick things off with this punchy question. What do you say to the people that quote, well, that personal brand stuff's just a load of fluffy nonsense?
That's a big question. I think they could be right, because sometimes it is a load of fluffy nonsense, right? I think personal branding has become almost commoditized as a term, and therefore everyone's talking about it, which gives it almost a bad reputation in itself. So yeah, there is a lot of fluff out there that you would describe, or some people would describe, as personal branding. The counterpunch to that, though, is actually there's a lot of people doing personal branding well and actually changing their lives for the better because of their own personal brands and reputation. So I would try to educate that person that there are always two ways to do something: the right way and the wrong way. And if you're focusing on people that do it the wrong way, then it's going to feel like a load of fluff. And if you focus on the people that are doing it the right way, actually you should be very inspired and see more leadership traits rather than the fluff and the nonsense that you might be receiving at the moment. So that would be my response to that question.
What an opening, Ryan. I absolutely love that. I wonder if you think the same as me, because I speak to a lot of people, and I know that you do as well with what you do at Jago. And often when I use the term personal brand, some people get perhaps the marketing ick, I might call it, and they go, "Oh, personal brand, I don't like that." Why do you think that is? Because when I've shifted that phrase to thought leadership or key person of influence, that seems to land better. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think when you connect the two words personal and brand, one feels very organic and fleshy, which is the personal part, and one feels quite almost too business-like and manufactured. So I think the terminology feels a little bit disconnected in itself, because we think of brands being businesses and commercial entities. And so it could feel like it's almost too intentional to create a sales machine through individuals and people with the exercise of building a personal brand. We don't see it like that. We see it as very different. We see it as authentic leadership, and we also see it as your reputation. Your reputation scaled to more people. We all have a personal brand or reputation. Let's call it reputation, whether we like it or not, with our close friends, with our family, with our colleagues within our business. And if you've actually worked on your personal brand, then you will have some sort of reputation with other people, your market. So yeah, I think it's a term that's been overused. It's obviously very on trend, or it has been for the last few years. So I think anything that trends, that feels somewhat contrived and manufactured through some sources and some people, then it's going to feel a little bit icky and awkward for some.
Do you think people can get away with not developing a personal brand in 2024 as a business leader, Ryan? Because again, a lot of the conversations that I have with the naysayers say, no, I just let my marketing team do that for me. And they hide almost behind that corporate banner. And I'm trying to educate them on the power of, really jumping in headfirst into that personal brand strategy development world. Is that something that you come across? Are people still not quite sure to jump, or almost they're quite comfortable just to sort of sit in the shadows behind the corporate banner?
I think let's take it back. When anyone sets a business up, all they have really is their own personality, right? And reputation. It's all about them. They don't have a business and they don't have a brand. So it's nothing new. Personal branding isn't new. The term is new, but actually people have always done business with people. And so I'd remind those people that it was you to start with that had the tenacity, the creativity, and the connections, the will to make connections with the right people that actually grew the business and got it off the ground. In terms of, and quite often what we see is the brand grows so big that they then go hidden because it's easier to go hidden. It's easier not to do the hard work and step up and do things like podcasts or public speaking or write that piece of content. Very easy to stay in the shadows and go hidden under the marketing team. But I'd also say it is a legitimate strategy for some that don't want to put themselves out there. No problem whatsoever. I'm not going to tell those people that they have to do it, because some people can, and some people can create some wonderful businesses and you wouldn't know who they were. So I wouldn't argue with those people. But for the majority of us, especially with businesses that focus on relationships, mainly service-based businesses, I think it's critical and imperative that you have people that step up and be a spotlight for that organization that they work for. So I think it's becoming more and more important for key leaders and everyone within the business, ideally, to step up and be a voice, contribute to their market, add value to their industry, and approach that with an essence of collaboration and, sharing your ideas, sharing your thoughts. It's not about broadcasting and preaching. It's a sense of kind of, I want to collaborate and add value to the market, but also learn and listen.
I'm sure we're going to talk about broadcasting and preaching, and I call it weeing everywhere. We do this. We're the best of that. We're number one in the world. It's a mistake that lots of people make, which we're going to talk about in towards the end of this conversation. But Ryan, I want to open up potentially a can of worms here, because when we first spoke on an online call, you said something that really piqued my interest, which was around the power of deploying emotional intelligence to increase the value of your personal brand. And even on that call, we didn't have the time to delve into it, but you said to me, that's what I want to talk about on a coffee with Chris. So what does that actually mean? Because I think potentially from the outside, again, maybe business leaders might hear that and go, that sounds a little bit fluffy to me. So why is it important to employ emotional intelligence to increase the value of your personal brand on, say, LinkedIn, for example?
Let me start with, if I may, a brief overview of what I would define as emotional intelligence, right? It's a real understanding of how your emotions impact your actions and how your actions impact your interactions with other people. So ultimately, it's about making sure that you're showing up and turning up in the right way so you can have healthier relationships around you. That's been around forever, but the term is being spoken about, EQ, emotional intelligence, more and more of late. Me personally, even before I worked in the personal branding arena, I've been using my EQ in all of my companies that I've worked for, and it's helped me transcend, the big corporate world, going from the bottom in the company in a sales organization, actually the largest sales organization at the time, going from one of the most junior positions to actually looking after the largest multi-million-pound portfolio. And that was all about how I turned up every day to the people in that business, to my clients. The consistency of those interactions really paid dividends in the amount of trust I received and respect from the people around me. When you have trust and when you have respect, people want to do business with you. So in essence, that's the value of having good EQ. It's a tool set to regulate your behavior in a way that's really, really effective in building deeper, more meaningful connections with other people. It's not augmented, or it's not constructed. It's very subconscious, but actually we all need to be able to tune in to that from time to time, right? Knowing who we really are, not just that off moment when someone's sort of derailed us at that point, and then we allow that to affect all of our interactions that day. So it's really around leadership. EQ improves our leadership and improves our interactions with other people. If we connect that with personal branding, then if we see personal branding an activity of being who you really are, a credible and an authentic leader that stands for something, and the personal branding part is just around presenting that to the outside world, then actually to walk the walk, EQ plays a major part on that. We've all met that person online, and then when you've met them in real life, it can be really underwhelming and it can be very jarring. You're like, wow, this feels like two different people. And what happens at that point, you erode trust. You do the opposite. You do the opposite to what you're trying to achieve, which is actually to build trust. You can have a great personal brand and not use LinkedIn. You could be the best person at turning up to networking events, speaking on stage, and do no social whatsoever, and you can still have a great personal brand because you're very aware of how you're showing up, what you stand for, and what you need to do in order to meet your audience on their ground. I see online as an extension of that, and it's a real opportunity to accelerate that that trust building process with the people that matter, which is either people that you want to connect with and help. Maybe they want to come and work for you, or maybe you want to do business with them because you can add value to a particular audience or person.
That is just so incredible, Ryan. There's so much that you can delve into there. I think the thing that I think about when I listen to that is I go back to the real basic of know, like, and trust. And I think about that and how you can accelerate that in different areas. And with those three things, it's very easy to become known, to just connect with someone on LinkedIn, to follow them on TikTok or whatever, to amass this big audience. And then I feel like people don't do the like and the trust bit. And even maybe with the trust bit, they see that as, well, I'll just share some social proof or a testimonial or a review. And that's okay. And that's much better than what a lot of people are doing. Don't get me wrong. And so I'm fascinated to learn from you, Ryan. How do you unlock that for your clients? How do you really sort of extract that emotional intelligence piece and convert that into content that helps improve a business leader's personal brand?
Love that, Chris. And I agree. There's that saying, isn't it? If people like you, they'll listen to you. But if they trust you, they'll do business with you. Right? How do we do it? We actually assess our clients. We're qualified coaches. So as part of our process with our clients, and in order for us to represent them and make sure that they're going to have that positive impact that we're expecting, which is aligned to our mission, we go through a process of assessing our clients. And so we assess their emotional intelligence, and we look at a very detailed picture of their overall EQ. Now, EQ is not just about having self-awareness. That is the start to all of it, but there are lots of different subscales that make up one's total emotional intelligence score. So how do we do it? We go through a process of assessment, and also we have a coaching session, a feedback session, where we highlight some of their gifts and talents, how that can be used through their personal brand. We also look at some of the cost implications to some of those high scoring areas, because there's always a cost to our gifts and talents, and see and look at some of the occasional costs of those. And we also look at some of the lower scoring areas and what the gaps are, because we need to be conscious around those things, because they're the things that could trip us up. So ultimately, authenticity is about having the bravery to be self-aware, look yourself in the mirror, say, who am I? What are the things I'm doing well? What are the things that I'm not doing well? Because we're all imperfect and we all make mistakes, and they could be costing us. But first of all, it's about looking in the mirror. Self-awareness is critical for any business leader to really build an authentic personal brand. Then you need to have the courage to actually do something about it.
I think so much of it is that mindset piece, isn't it, Ryan? Which is why it's so powerful that you're qualified coaches, because it's all very well and good, going to someone like ourselves and say, like, here's the strategy, here's how you can build a personal brand, here are your content pillars, off you go and make it happen. But actually, if they don't have that inner belief, that inner confidence, if they've not looked in the mirror and gone, this is who I am, and this is what I do, and this is how I want to help people, right? It's one of those things where they're always going to hit that ceiling. So I think that's brilliant, and that's not spoken about enough, Ryan. So I'm so pleased that you've sort of you shouted that loud and clear. That, and actually, I think that mindset piece. I don't know if you agree or disagree with me on this. I think that mindset piece must actually come before the strategy piece and the execution piece. I think, you know, and something that I preach all the time myself is execution and perfection and getting stuff out there. But at the same time, if you've not sorted out that mindset around who you want to be and what you want to attract, you're not going to be able to sustain it, are you?
I love that. Absolutely. You know, we talk about being ourselves, to be authentic, right? Just be yourself. But actually, the big question is, who are we? Many people don't know who they are.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that, they know who their character is. They've got an idea. They kind of, you know, they've got a sense of it, but it's not clear. They can't articulate what their true value is, what their position is, what their purpose is, what really makes them tick the way they tick. And so, you know, that pre-work, that sort of digging deep, if you like, the introspection, what shaped us, and then the assessments to make it clear and to validate that and have that played back to you. That's powerful. That's when the fog starts to disappear and you're like, well, I kind of know where I am, but there's this chaos and I need it organized in order for me to use it in a meaningful way, especially when it comes to my personal brand. Otherwise, you will, you know, get off to a sort of a false start, you know, go for it. And it's like, this isn't me. It's not resonating. And so, yeah, we believe that actually we need to really answer that question, and it continues. We don't find all of the answers. I'm not who I was 10 years ago. There's a lot of my character that's transcended and transitioned with me. But we all change. Our characters change and develop based on our own experiences and based on the work that we're prepared to do.
I think we're leaning into the part of the conversation, Ryan, where I need to talk about sustainability here in terms of, you've mentioned it. It's all right to just get busy with it. Even someone that knows who they are, what they do, what their values are, they might know a bit about social. They start getting some stuff out there, and then all of a sudden, this personal brand project falls off a cliff after month 2. And you and I both know full well that it can take a year, 2 years, you know, even 3 years. You really have to stay the course, don't you? And so I'm fascinated to learn from you, Ryan. What are the things that you would recommend business leaders put in place to sustainably build a personal brand that continues to snowball and get bigger and bigger as time goes on?
Great question. I actually got asked this question or a similar question yesterday on a workshop that we were running, and it was kind of, the question was on the lines of, how do we reposition, how do we get our personal brands going if we're changing jobs or moving positions, whatever it might be. And this kind of falls into that sort of sustainable approach, which is, first of all, we're much more than our job titles. So our personal brand shouldn't be attached wholly to the current position that we hold. It's much deeper than that. And actually, when we do the pre-work and uncover the things that we can basically hold on to for the long game, what do I really stand for? What are the things that are never going to change within me? You know, I'm always going to be a people promoter. I'm always going to have a heart for the underdog. I'm always going to be fascinated with the correlation between EQ and improved performance in all aspects of our lives, including our well-being. Those things aren't going to change. So it's uncovering the running thread. That's the key, because that's when you're going to have a sustained, you know, effort in terms of building your personal brand. You're going to be interesting for longer because you're going to go deeper into those subject specialisms. You're going to find new things to talk about. You're going to have new challenges and new questions, and they're going to, you know, expand. So yeah, find out what things are really meaningful to you, because that's around purpose. That's around purposeful living, finding out what your gifts and talents are, connecting those with your passions, and continuing to go on that journey. That's when you're fulfilled, because purpose doesn't get old.
Yes. And that's a problem that so many people I speak with, Ryan, they'll say something like, I don't have a story, or, well, I'm a bit boring really, or, well, I didn't really have much to contribute, or I don't have anything valuable to say. And so I think it's really important in a very sort of micro actionable form here to really sort of lay out your whole world, essentially, like who you are on and off the pitch, so to speak, and to put a football analogy onto it. What are you passionate about outside of work? What values do you have? And then also, what values does your business have? And really laying those out, and almost then establishing content pillars from there to make sure that you can be consistent. Would you agree with me or disagree? You're allowed to disagree, although I will kick you off the podcast.
I disagree. No. Agreeing in terms of having set content things to talk about.
Yes. Because I think so many business owners get disheartened when they say they're one or two things, and then they're like, right, well, that's it now. I've said my piece. But that you've got to be consistent with this, haven't you? That's essentially the statement I'm throwing at you, Ryan.
100%, because we're funny humans, aren't we? We believe that if we put out one message, it's going to land with all of our connections and friends, and they're going to know everything about me, and they're going to know the story exactly how I know the story in my head. That is an assumption, and it's a lie, because actually we need to keep beating the drum. We need to keep reminding people of the key messages, because they might not have received it in the way you wanted them to receive it the first time round. So absolutely, consistency of messaging, consistency of the subjects that you speak about, the content types that you speak about. Of course, you can go broad at times, and that's okay, as long as it adds value and it's in line with your own beliefs. But actually, consistency in who you are, what your values are, you know, your identity, you know, shapes that to a certain degree as well. So actually knowing your own identity and projecting that through your storytelling, and being open enough to have challenge and conversations around those things. So yeah, absolutely, I do agree that having a cornerstone of the things that you really feel passionately about is imperative. Otherwise, if you jump on trends, it's going to be short-lived, and we see many people jumping on trends and then thinking, and they might have even got lucky. They might have been the first one to put that particular piece of content out, and it's like, whoa, I should just jump on trends now. But you know, I'm not interested in the paparazzi style personal branding. That's for someone else. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in real leaders stepping up, being consistent with their values, so they can have an impact on others in a positive way.
I love that, Ryan. It's so important. And even cynically, even if you are a cynical thinker, if you're, you know, a bit skeptic, if you're a bit concerned that you're just sort of doing this fluffy personal branding thing, quite simply, by delving into things and talking about things that you're genuinely passionate about and you care about, it is going to convert, because then you're tapping into that like and that trust piece, which so many people don't. The trend jacking, sorry to use marketing fluff in front of you, Ryan, piece is fascinating to me, and I politely preach on this all the time. Is I think business owners sadly they have the magpie effect, and they get lost in this. Well, I posted about Brexit and I had, you know, 50 million impressions on LinkedIn or whatever. And they're like, well, that's clearly what I need to do. And then I say to that business owner, how many inquiries did you have off the back of that? How many messages did you receive inquiring about your services? No, I didn't get any, Chris. I'm like, okay. So is it value over vanity, or is it vanity over value? And I think I think that I'm sure that's something that you prescribe to, right, Ryan, is that, you know, building a personal brand that's, you know, sustainable and critically, you know, creates ROI is all about publishing value. It might not be seen by many people. It might not get a high engagement rate necessarily, but it's one of those things to keep turning up and keep talking about it all the time in order to convert.
Yeah. Look, we need those newsjackers as well. You know, I quite like it when I see something and someone's presented me with information that I haven't seen before, and they've done it. That's just not what we do, right? That's for the newsjackers, and great for them, because they're providing value in their own way. As long as they are intentionally trying to generate value from it, if they do it right, it's when you are trying to be a business leader and trying then to be a newsjacker or an influencer, and you're getting confused. That's where the problem occurs. But all for the newsjackers, if they're doing great from it and earning business, and actually it's helping them grow, because there's a place for everyone as long as it's done correctly and respectfully. But for us, it's don't get lost in the hype. There's a lot of hype out there and people want to jump on the hype train. But it's not always good for people, right? It's not always good for people. It does feel good. Of course, it feels good to get great numbers on a post. Yeah, that's what the whole system's geared up to.
Yes.
You know, social media, the algorithms, boom, the dopamine goes. So I'm under no illusion that, you know, us human beings all have a bit of vanity at times. That's the truth. But if we go for that, then that's the wrong move, because, you know, it doesn't pay the bills. It doesn't exchange, you know, meaningful conversations. You know, that's the stuff that can actually shift the dial. That's the stuff that actually attracts the right people that you can serve.
So with you, Ryan, what are the, would you say, 3 top mistakes you see business leaders making when it comes to, you know, when they first dip their toe in the personal brand paddling pool, we'll call it? What are the mistakes they're making that you're like, oh God, I just wish they didn't do that? What are those 3 things?
There's a lot. There's a lot.
That says a lot. Well, that says a lot in itself. If you
there is a lot.
3.
And you know, I've made mistakes as well in the past, so it's not me pointing the finger at other people. You know, we've all made them, because it is a process and we can all fall in the traps of doing the wrong things. But I think if I was to summarize 3, maybe focusing on the wrong metrics. Metrics are important. They're all important, including the likes, including, you know, the vanity sort of metrics. But I know people with 10 times the following count that I have. So, and I know those people are struggling to get business. So the number of followers or connections don't always equal the amount of business that you're generating. And I know a lot of people in the past have been able to leverage that as a way to say, well, you know, we've got big numbers, we can certainly help you grow your social media account or personal brand. But numbers are just one thing. If those numbers are all fluff and all, you know, people that aren't ever going to buy from you, and you can see that with the level of engagement, number of followers compared to quality comments, things aren't stacking up, right? And so focus on the right metrics for you, and focus on the things that are actually generating the conversations. They're things like comments, the amount of DMs that you're getting, shares, whatever it might be, mentions. You know, all of those things are a sign that you're doing positive things with your personal brand that are landing with the right audience. That's one. Do you want another?
Come on, have one more. Give me one more. There's lots in that. Let's have one more.
I'll give you a couple more. I don't believe in just posting. I know a lot of people say, just post it, get it out there, just post. I do believe that we should post when we're ready to, and once we've looked at the content that we're ready. So I understand that there is a psychological barrier from a lot of people pressing the post button. So I know some of the messages are out there to try and encourage people just to post. But it's not good just to post without going through the implications. And what I mean by that is, if you haven't really thought about what you're posting and why you're posting it and who it's for and what value it's going to add, then if the idea is to build trust with the audience, you might be getting off to a really poor start. You're trying to run the race, but actually by posting the wrong content, you might end up going backwards. If I try and be funny with my content and I'm not a comedian and I'm not going to live that up for the next 20 years, then I'm not going to try and be funny with my content. You know, I can be funny with my friends and I can have a laugh, but I don't want to be known to be a comedian. So actually my content isn't going to be, you know, leaning towards being funny all the time. There's better people out there that can do that for me. So actually knowing, you know, that this post is going to be something that you're going to be happy to look back on in years to come when you've grown, learned and developed, I think that's really important. So be considered. If you are about to post, share it with your friends, think about the content, think about who is it for and how do you want them to feel? Who is it for and how do you want them to feel? Make the audience the hero, not you. And then, yeah, I think the sort of third one is don't get caught in the crossfire. You know, are you thinking you're a content creator / influencer with your personal brand, or are you a business leader that happens to write content on social platforms? So be very clear on where you sit, because there's a space for everyone, but I think it's easy to get confused and distracted with the hype of influencers out there.
Wow. I'm saying this every week at the moment, but particularly with you, Ryan, there could absolutely be, never mind around 2, there could be around 15 into all of these little pockets of the personal brand universe we've opened up. I really, really appreciate the time that you've spent with myself and also our ever-growing community today, Ryan. Thank you. And just one thing I want you to share, if it's okay, is I really want you to talk about your industry first report, please, because one of the things that you're saying and that you're backing up here is this isn't just a fluffy, wishy-washy thing. You can actually back up what you do and why you do it based upon data, right? So where can people go to access that?
So thanks, Chris. Yes, we've created a personal branding benchmark report. It's the first of its kind. We've actually assessed hundreds of leaders, business leaders, with regards to their personal brand and also the growth of their business. And we produced a report and we've extracted some of the key themes with those people that have been assessed. So you can either Google it, it's at the top of Google, just type in personal brand report and you'll find it. Or you can go to my LinkedIn profile and look at my featured section and click on the link and download your own copy today.
And it's free, Ryan, right?
Yeah, it's free. It's accessible. Yeah, free to everyone. You know, we're on a mission here to have an impact with more people. And so if that report can help educate and inform people to step up in the right way, then we're going to make that available to as many people as possible.
Ryan, just as your dog comes on screen, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
And thank you so much to everyone watching this live, watching back, listening, whether you're on Spotify, SoundCloud, iTunes, YouTube. Do subscribe, like, review, all of that lovely social stuff. And if you've got any questions for Ryan, I'm sure he won't mind answering them in any of the social posts. Just tag us and we will get back to you to answer any queries that you may have. As always, this conversation has been brought to you in association with Big C, Norfolk's cancer charity, and Hill Coaching. Thank you so much, as always, and I will see you this time next week for another episode of A Coffee with Chris.